Acute lung injury oftentimes affects the airways and the lung parenchyma, and it is often associated with mechanical ventilation. There are various forms of ventilator associated injuries, some of which we will discuss. These injuries are referred to as barotrauma, volutrauma, atalic trauma, and biotrauma. Barotrauma is oftentimes associated with high intrapulmonary pressures, whereas volume trauma is associated with overdistension of the lung secondary to mechanical ventilation, leading to direct injury of the alveoli. This is oftentimes associated with high tidal volumes, which then activates secondary inflammatory mediators. Atelectatic trauma is known as damage from the shear and strain of the collapsible lung constantly opening and closing, which oftentimes can lead to de-recruitment. Biotrauma is the release of inflammatory cytokines in the immune-mediated injury when the lung tissue is exposed to the following mechanisms.
Based on several trials, one being the ARDSNet trial, there were a few takeaway points that we learned on how to prevent ventilator-induced lung injuries. The following goals and strategies can be utilized. So, for example, we learned that lower tidal volumes the goal of 6 ml per kg based on predicted body weight utilizing height and gender was safer and has been shown to improve mortality in mechanically ventilated patients versus higher tidal volumes. Another strategy that we utilize is keeping the plateau pressure less than 30 centimeters of water. We want to keep it there in order to reduce alveolar distension. When you look at the peak airway pressure on the vent, this is what we refer to as airway resistance plus the lung compliance. And the plateau pressure itself measures the lung compliance. And this is really important to prevent over distension of the alveoli. And we measure the plateau pressure by doing what we call a hold maneuver on the ventilator, where at the end of inspiration, we can see what the pressure is our PEEP, which is important because we want to avoid alveolar collapse during expiration. And we really only want to adjust the PEEP if based on what our oxygenation is, because every time we increase this PEEP, the plateau pressure will increase. And again, we want to make sure that our plateau pressure is below the 30 centimeters of water.